Hey everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Get my head sorted and keep myself accountable the rest of the day. Um, yeah, a bit more of a pullback than expected, especially since we were holding those highs. Kind of expected the US session to break out, but it obviously went the other way. And this is a pretty decent engulfing candle at the moment, which could see us pull back into the value area high around 67k. Um, Obviously, the month is closing in a couple of hours. It's still going to be a pretty positive month. Would have been nice to see it close above the highs here previously. That would have been a new monthly all-time high close, and it could still do that. I'll have a look at that in a minute. But for the time being, actually, I just want to momentum on the monthly. Yeah, momentum back up on the monthly. Not really a huge cause for concern at the moment. Weekly, just got a few days to go on the weekly yet. I would actually still expect the weekly close probably above the all-time high. Momentum's certainly up, and stochastic momentum, and BBWP is jumping. It has ticked below on the advanced decline line, but again, I don't know how good this is for crypto. Haven't tested that really. Dips below it before haven't really been a massive issue. So back to the daily. Yeah. Still a green candle if we hold around here, like not brown anyway. Brown could be bad. It's not a capitulation candle. Um, the longs have started to pick back up again. I'll just go to that. So they have been buying throughout this week. Not a huge amount. We did raise this as a potential red flag, kind of discounted it given how long it was since that point and the fact that it's still going up. Hadn't really seen anything like that in the past. It may still be a bit of a false flag kind of issue, but they are starting to nibble on it. Core PCE came in as expected. Personal spending's actually gone up. Personal incomes as forecast. Ugh. The non-farm payrolls tonight is probably going to be a big one. I could see the market come back a little bit more. But yeah, look, I think the biggest thing at the moment is this one. So we want to see some support forming around here. Everything's going to run back up. There hasn't been a huge drop in the open interest. Open interest is still high. In fact, if anything, it's kind of increased compared to some of these people that would have got wiped out on their longs. A little bit of a bottoming sign here, but looking at it just as this, probably got a little bit further to go to the downside, and looks trying for that at the moment. There is a support level in here around that somewhere around 69,700 would be a good place to bounce from. Just confirm that with this. So a good chunk of liquidity would be taken if we did pull back to 69,700. I would expect a bounce point. Taking most of it though to the downside. There might have been a bit of spoofing going on to the upside previously. A few fake orders coming in. This is probably the most troubling thing in terms of where will we bottom before going higher. These levels here are going to sit around the lower fib levels that you would expect to bounce from. And I'll do that. I'll show that in a sec. 67K, yeah, it's possible. At least 68. If we do drop further, could be done with it here. Just going off the amount of money that's come into ETFs lately, it's pretty nuts. US dollars. So yesterday it was nearly $1 billion coming into bybit. Like these flows in just massive, huge flows. BITBs had a little bit of outflows today, but this one's the big one because these guys are the guys that influence markets, and if they're getting people to put into their fund, chances are they're telling them, "No, this is going high." All right. Yeah. That's probably the biggest sign that whatever this dip is, it won't last a huge amount of time. I'm not expecting a retest at the bottom of that channel or anything like that. If anything, potentially just coming back into the top of the channel. So back into this vector target here around 64.4 again. That's kind of comes up still. And we could dip hard, don't get me wrong, with volatility sort of increasing still. If this crosses the downside and actually crosses out of the bullish control zone, then could come back more. But at the moment, global liquidity is just taking a bit of a pump, probably because there's some structural issues. In which case, let's go and have a look at decent drop on the NASDAQ. Tapped into the 50 EMA. This probably is a little concerning. BBWP hasn't sort of gotten to the level that you kind of confirm, okay, this thing's going to rip in either direction. So it could be a little bit of a pullback. This could increase slightly, and then we get the bounce. I am still expecting a bounce. This is all, well, you got earnings season and you got the election. You knew it was going to be a bit iffy going into that. This was the biggest sort of signal that we were coming down behind the scenes, regardless of what the NASDAQ was doing. And this is still the one I want to see really turn around on increasing BBWP would be preferable. So SPY gap down, come into that 50 EMA. This is probably looking a bit closer to a bottom, but again, we'll wait and see on that. Equal weight, hitting the 50 EMA as well. Nice vector candles. IWM not pulling back as much as the others. It did have a bigger drop to start with, but we did recover that vector too. IWM, you probably wicks down into the 100 EMA wouldn't go astray, but we would be putting in a lower low if we did come in below this. So that trend line didn't hold. Back to the drawing board on that. XLI is still coming back. Oh, hang on. Let's just measure out. So yeah, 5% drop would bring us into that 100 EMA. That's not unheard of coming into this sort of period. But overwhelmingly, the seasonality in this sort of period is upside. So any pullback should be met with buying demand. Just a matter of where you want to start buying. XLY, XLP finally been pulling back. As I said yesterday, this is heavily influenced by bloody Tesla and Amazon. Tesla obviously pushed this up for a couple of days, and Amazon wasn't hurting it. So now I suspect Tesla's pulling back. Yeah, Tesla's having a decent pullback. Everything's pulling back for the most part. Probably some sort of news event that kick this off. I'll have a look at later. Home construction is finding a bit of base here, which is good. KRE is still chugging sort of sideways and up. Too worried about that. Actually, I'm just going to do it. G1. Which one's the KRE one? Huh. I'll have to find out what the see if they have an equal weight. Regional banking. Doesn't look like it. I'll have to check that out. See, there's an equal weight of banking one. There is an equal weight XLY, XLP, which I will put on the charts. Show more of actually happening. Anyway, so KRE is not looking too bad. DJI Gold. Again, this was an early indicator that we would see a pullback. I just thought it was going to be a pullback in time the way it was looking. Looks like they've finally pulled the trigger to sweep some of the longs out of the market. Decent bounce on it today, though, DJI Gold. So may find a base soonish. DJI is certainly in an area that it could bounce from, and it has respected that 50 EMA a few times on the way up. Might get another couple of down days though. VIX coming into these highs, I would expect VIX to push a little bit higher than that, up into the high 20s, maybe even 30. So that would see us come down at 5% at least on the S&P 500. Skew was up yesterday, so skew is actually increasing, which yeah, that's not a bad thing. Again, suggesting there's a bit of underlying support still. Should be a buy the dip type scenario. Chinese markets come back down a little. Still in a range though. Japanese markets pull back a bit as well. We're going to get choppiness until this friggin' election's over, at least. And you've probably got another week after the actual election itself before they finalise a few numbers, unless it's just a red sweep or a blue sweep. TLT, finding a bit of structure around the bottom here. High yield junk, starting to find a little bit. So equal weight staples versus consumer discretionary. It's actually still not bad. XLY, XLP. I just haven't done the division of those two yet. 2-year and 10-year slowly look like they're slowing down. Yeah, it's high yield still might come back a little bit more. Copper's still coiling. It's going to be a pretty big move when it does. So a big break to the bottom of this, probably a break of that 200 EMA there, on increasing BBWP and decreasing stochastic momentum, you'd be pretty bearish on the market overall, and that could be signifying something really big underlying issue. But break to the upside from here, given that BBWP's reset, it could be a pretty massive bull run too. Pretty big blowout to the upside. Gold's pulled back, decent volume, so yeah. Might have found its little top for the time being. I think that's pretty good reversal pattern on the candles there. Silver's coming back with it. Oil's starting to find a low by the look of it. Trying to. Not a bad breakout of stochastic momentum there on bullish divergence as well. So looks like it was just trying to freak some people out to the downside. Could have been election, could have been war related in like the Ukraine stuff as well. Well, not Ukraine, Israel and Iran. Close the gap ish. I mean, technically, I'd like to see it close above that open there. Above that close just in here. But looking strong. BBWP will probably revert to the upside soon as well if it keeps going up like this. Just have to wait and see. If we break these lows, it will go down pretty hard. Dixie's pulling back finally, which Funnily enough, I thought Dixie pulling back might actually help the stock market and particularly Bitcoin to go up. So it's kind of bucked that trend. Aussie dollars finally finding some support. Japanese yen is the same. Pretty decent move on the yen, but need a bit more confirmation of that, I would think. Euro, pretty good bottom there. Just whether it can get through these moving averages. Oh, the Brazilian reals getting hit pretty hard. Hong Kong dollars getting hit. Great Britain pound is getting hit still. Yeah, bump in global liquidity is sort of suggesting there might be some underlying structural issues. And yeah, the big guys are all pretty well down. Nice little fake out to all-time highs there. It could get a decent move to the downside. You're looking for support on these. Like if it doesn't find support pretty soon after hitting this vector, you're probably looking for it around the 1852 level, the mag 7. But that 200 EMA is a potential target as well, especially with this sort of volatility around elections. Tesla's still pulling back. Lots of profit taking going on there. Actually, I was just going to. Yeah, so the advanced decline line's certainly suggesting that there's potentially some more to come. Not giving us a hell of a lot either way. SMCI is still getting pumped. Still getting beaten down into earnings too. So interesting to see where this one stops. Realistically, around 23 bucks, that could see it stop. Does have a gap down here at 16. I'd be surprised if it comes in there right now, but yeah, this is interesting. Meta's finally having a bit of a pullback. Should retest the breakout. If it fails that and then retests the fail and then moves to the downside more, then I'd start to be a little bit more worried about the overall economy, to be honest. This is a good retest of that trend line there. It has failed this one though. So that didn't hold it up. What were earnings like? Oh, they're coming out tonight. Actually, they should be out. Oh, yeah, they are. Are they? No, not out yet. Probably in the next half hour or so. That would be a great spot for Apple to bounce from. Good earnings from Apple here would see a pretty good run, I would say. Potentially up to at least. That's probably a very conservative level, but I'd even say 250 would be target on Apple if that bounces from here. will be an interesting earnings one. Earnings this year, this quarter is just sent mental. Another one that's coming into a pretty decent zone for a bounce being Amazon. Google's still pulling back. So good earnings, but there was something in there that people didn't like. Nvidia doesn't report for another couple of weeks. It's probably going to be the big one. And I've been calling that it'd be nice to see a pullback into earnings, these trend lines. So hopefully that is where it gets to. Which you would kind of expect the rest of the market to be pulling back for a longer period if that's the case. We could even get a 10% drop on the S&P 500. Do I think Bitcoin will do the same thing? Not necessarily. I think that's one of the reasons why people are shifting a lot of money into BlackRock ETF at the moment, because they're seeing potential weakness in the S&P 500. I think Bitcoin's going to be part of the overall liquidity movements that happen. Just a shift around different markets. In the future, failed this freaking channel again on ETH. That's not great, but just be looking for it to put in another, like a higher low. Going to be choppy and potentially reasonably nonsensical for the time being. Yeah, it looks like it's failed that little 800 EMA on the 15-minute is, I think, a really solid target for the bottom on this. Bit of structure in here around that level as well. That's your 69, 700-ish level. It could wick further down below that. Typically, you would get a wick if you get like through the EMA, if that ends up being support. Down into 69.2. Funnily enough, Crown the other day was talking about November statistics, and in election years, I think it was the second and like the first 3 days basically find the low in November. So pulling back here, we might get the low on the first, we might get it on the second, but I think these are going to be pretty good buying opportunities to load up a little bit. Probably going to convert over into like most of my trading balance. I'll convert into Bitcoin and do inverse perps for the run up, just so I get the benefit of actually holding the Bitcoin as well as trading it. I think this is the last chance to do that before we go on the run. Could be completely wrong, but the inflows into the ETFs are suggesting that, yeah, there's going to be some support here pretty soon. Getting close to sort of bottoming on some of these indicators that I got as well. Definitely the DMIs haven't crossed yet though, so. And the longer term one is still positioned to the downside. That was something that was worrying me back in my head. I didn't mention it in the previous videos, but this is like a longer duration kind of traders dynamic index, and it is resetting at the moment. So we may see a bit more sideways, a little bit more down over the next couple of days, but it should be finding its bottom. If history plays out The same this time, within the next couple of days, potentially over the weekend. All right. Have a quick look at Sol. Like a pullback was definitely, obviously, it's always something I mention looking at the liquidity side of things. They tend to want to pull back and take these levels, but it's never 100% certainty. I'd normally use these just for take profit levels and potential bounce levels. That's still a concern if there's some sort of black swan that comes out in the short term, but honestly, I think that'll be left there until end of next year and until we get the big drop after whatever the high is. If we break below, what's the invalidation? This run up continuing. My invalidation level. So I've started playing around with ground stuff as well. Had a sale on, so I figured I'd just have a play with it. Fibs. Depends where you want to take this. We'll go off the low. Pretty good level for a bounce around here. Let's go proper low. Low. You got the 0.5 level sitting right at the 800 EMA. That's a pretty good level. 69,500. It had some support there on the way up. That would make a lot of sense to hit that in the next couple of days and then potentially move up. Whether it does it now or near future, we'll have to wait and see, but certainly adding to long positions still at the moment rather than taking away. And that'll probably be the final spot that I add at. No, it wouldn't be, sorry. If we do come down into the 618, I'll probably add a little bit more if I'm seeing a turnaround. But if I don't see that turnaround, I'll probably actually hedge to the downside and just ride it as far as it wants to go to the downside until we see proper recovery. Yeah, it's a little bit surprising. There was so many fake outs in this little thing yesterday in the Discord. I actually put in there that this was looking like a fairly strong move. It was definitely the strongest one that I was seeing over that period. And yeah, it was just a fake out. But literally just before that, I said it had to hold that trend line as well, and it didn't. It broke it, retested it, and failed it. And then that was basically a retest as well. Trend line was pretty well through there. So yeah, waiting for confirmations above these levels is always a good thing. And yeah, having stuff set for expected downsides and expected upsides is a good thing as well. So my first take profit levels probably, now that we've had the pullback, I'm actually going to hold it a little bit longer. So if we do break new all-time highs, after this pullback, I think it will blast through quite quickly. 81.5 is a target. There's obviously going to be some little blips and stuff on the way, but I think 81.5 is probably going to be where we get something like this happen. Potentially for a little bit longer than that, but on most breakouts, new all-time highs, you tend to get like a little or a decent sort of pullback at some stage before that final move up. And I think 81.5 to 85 even, somewhere in that region is probably going to be where this occurs. And then we'll go on the last push up. And that last push up, 120-ish, 125, probably start taking profit if I'm seeing longer term overbought around those levels. So yeah, patience, probably adding to positions for the time being. Just looking for the turnaround. But if the stock market keeps pulling back, it could have an influence, but I just think a decent chunk of that money that's coming out of these markets is moving into Bitcoin at the moment. I think that's about it for now. The first downside target's around the 69 at the lowest, I would think. Yeah, first target's 69,500. Next target's 68,500. Bit of action around there. And then below that, well, back into the breakout levels. 67.2 is the value area high, which it may want. And then below that, 64,400, which would be a retest of this channel. And alts are probably going to get slammed in the meantime. Okay. A lot of the alts are still holding. Holding pretty decent levels. Those just following close to what Bitcoin's doing. Litecoin's just pulling back a little. Lower high there's a little concerning. Shitcoins are still holding up okay, really. That's great. Sol, back Sol's back. Actually, Sol's actually been moving and sort of leading the way for Bitcoin lately. So seeing a bounce in Sol would be handy. Yeah, the rest of them are struggling a little. Yeah, all right. See what happens over the weekend, but should be last chance buying opportunities at the moment. Looks like it wants to hold this level too, actually. Don't think it will too long anyway. It's recovered that vector candle. Left a vector here as well, but I don't know that that'll last too long. We could end up just forming a range in here until next week too, which would suck ass, but that's sort of my way I'm looking at it today. I hope that helps. Catch you later.